Welcome to the Disruptor Network podcast.
Welcome back to the Disruptors Network podcast. We have a great guest for you today with Terrence Murphy. His story starts in College Station, Texas A&M, where he was a star football player. He then was drafted into the NFL, played with Aaron Rodgers, and then moved on after his career into an all-star career in real estate. Not only does he have a huge real estate franchise, but he has a construction company that's built over 85 single-family homes and a real estate management company where he owns hundreds of properties. This is a real, true entrepreneur real estate story. You don't want to miss this. And now, Terrence Murphy.
Ignition. Liftoff.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the Disruptors Network podcast. We have an amazing guest today. A man who's an entrepreneur, a realtor. He was a superstar football player, so I have a lot of stuff to talk to him about because it kind of hits a lot of the things I like to speak about. But today we have Terrence Murphy, who was a star player at Texas A&M. Was then drafted by the Green Bay Packers. And since then, he has created a huge real estate portfolio, as well as a big real estate franchise, as well as he helps kids. And the list kind of goes on and on and on. And welcome, Terrence Murphy.
Thank you, bro. Thanks for having me, brother. I'm excited to be on the show and looking forward to diving into some real estate.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I obviously college football, I'm a big sports fan. And I went back and looked at your career, and you played at a huge university. And then you made it to the NFL, which I'm sure was a lifelong dream at the time that you made it, right?
Yeah.
How do you turn that into real estate with the same passion as you attack football with? Because obviously it took a lot to be at the level you were at. And what was that journey like from being there to getting into real estate, and how you kind of how started to find some success in real estate?
Yeah, man. So I came to Texas A&M as a two-star quarterback recruit. I grew up in a country town, small town, single mom, and just hard work, man. I moved when I got to Texas A&M. They signed like 4 or 5-star receivers, and I was a 2-star quarterback. So when I told everybody I'm gonna move the receiver, they're like, "You're crazy, man. You're never gonna play." And so during camp, I started off as like on the 8th team at the time, and that's when they used to have freshman camp before varsity came out. This was like in the early 2000s. And by the end of camp, man, I went from like 8th team to I was on 2nd team. And Bevel Johnson, he ended up winning a couple of Super Bowls with the Patriots, was our starting X. And he ended up cramping up the first game at Kyle Field in front of 100,000, 90,000. And I went out there and caught the game-winning touchdown, man. It was kind of history from that point.
Awesome.
And so, yeah, I left Texas A&M as a 2-time first-team all-conference, 3-time academic all-conference, and one of the most decorated receivers in the history of our university. And I think I was the 4th receiver to get drafted in the first 2 rounds. But I went to the Packers. Aaron Rodgers was our first pick that year in the draft. And so everybody knows A-Rod. He's still spinning the ball. He was my roommate. We were roommates at camp, on the road. We spent a lot of time together. And then, and then I ended up having the neck injury and I retired. But I took that same passion that got me to that point. And my biggest prayer is, hey, God, give me something I can be passionate about. And he showed me real estate. So that's kind of what started the journey of being and pursuing, real estate.
That's awesome. And I talk about something a lot that you just said something and made me think about it. I talk about kind of a growth trap almost. And, you were somebody who was obviously very physically gifted, but you had to work hard to get yourself to other levels because at some point, your physical ability wasn't enough. You kind of had to do more to get to the other level. So when you get into a business like real estate that you're new at, how do you kind of transfer that to that? Like, look, I'm new to this, and my athletic ability, it's not the same thing. Like, I have to really kind of work hard every single day to get to. Like, what was the first couple of years like in real estate?
Yeah, man. So I started off as a limited partner in a capital company in Dallas. There's some guys I knew. My financial advisor got me connected with them, and I was investing in their projects. They were the GPs, and I was a limited partner, multifamily deals, land development deals. And I remember I did that for a couple of years, 2006, 7, and 8, so 3 years. And then obviously we know what happened in '08, man. It just got crazy, stock market, real estate. And I called my financial advisor, like, dude, get my money out of the stock market. Like, I'm done, man. I was 24, I was like, I'm not doing this. It's like, and I still remember the quote I said, if I'm gonna lose money, I'm gonna lose on my own education. So, because the beauty of that is it'll always be with me. And so he ended up challenging me. He said, well, what are you gonna do with it? And I said, give me a week. Went to Barnes & Noble that night with my fiance at the time, now my wife. And I just started buying any book around finance, real estate, entrepreneurship, anything that was in that space. I read 40 books in 16 months, and I'm not even a reader, bro. But like you said earlier, I took that same mindset and I said, I hate reading, but if this is what I got to do to be great, this is what I got to do to go pursue this dream, I got to put that work in. And that's what I did, man. I read those books, and then I decided to move back to College Station. We started buying up land, started buying up urban development, start rezoning properties, and start building a portfolio of real estate. And that's what started. And then I got my license after that.
So that's amazing. And it's funny because every single time you talk to somebody who's kind of had success the way you've had it in any form, always tells you it's always the same thing. It's always like getting themselves uncomfortable with something else they've never done before, and then grinding until they get to the point where they feel they can play at a level playing field with all the bigger people. So that's amazing. And now you say things, and then I get more questions. I'm inquisitive. So College Station, what did College Station look like when you first started buying there and developing land there? What does it look like then compared to what it looks like now? Like, what was the landscape, and how has that changed as you've progressed?
Yeah, I always tell people who don't know Texas, just take the Texas map. There's a triangle, right? So if you take the center of Texas, let's just say Central Texas, Dallas and Fort Worth is north, so it's the top of the triangle. You go southwest, San Antonio and Austin, and then you go east, southeast is Houston. So that's the triangle on the map. So you got Dallas, Austin, Houston, and College Station is right in the center. So we're right in the middle of the triangle of growth. We're a rural town. It's a college town. It's literally called College Station. There's 65,000 college kids at Texas A&M. It's one of the biggest universities in America. It's 5,200 acres. And then you have Blinn Junior College, which is the number one junior college in America from an enrollment standpoint. I think they got 16,000 students. So, but yeah, that's what it is. It's grown a lot from an enrollment standpoint. It's really grown a lot. And so what I ended up doing is I always focused on learning my craft. And I always say, whenever we transition to something new, we got to be willing to go back to the bottom. And I think a lot of times people that have been successful at one thing or another, whether it's ego, whether it's expectations, whether it's pride, they're not willing to start over. And and that was the lesson I had to learn, start over from scratch. And so to answer your question, what does it look like now? I started buying stuff in a 1 mile radius of campus because I knew at the end of the day, this university is going to expand. Some of that stuff I was buying, $78,000 duplexes, man, scraping them. So I started tearing them down, scraping them, and I would just go through like Monopoly, bro, and just try to buy out every property on one block. Then I'd buy 2 blocks. Then I'd buy 3 blocks. And then I would take it and put it all together, rezone it, replat it. And now I'm right by Kyle Field, which is a $1 billion stadium, and I got 2 acres. And so I would just go back and rezone it and then build on it.
And I'm sure your network strengthens every single time you do that, obviously. And you were known there to begin with, but I'm sure just your real estate portfolio, as it grows, it strengthens. And I have a similar story to you in different places. I was in mortgages in 2001, and I kind of rode that up to 2007, and then the market crashed, and I lost everything. And like in reflecting back on it, I always tell people that I had to humble myself because at the time of the crash, I was a vice president at a publicly traded company, and then I was kind of clinging to that. Like I'm a vice president of a publicly traded company, but I was a broke vice president without a job. So I had to like come to reality. And my reality was I had to go back to being a loan officer and start over again. And it was, I think thinking like the beginning of things is great. And from what you're saying, it's the same thing. Like you just attack, which is amazing. So you really, and this is somebody who's in the business 20 years, you learned the hard part, like a part that's a very, very advanced part first. Like you were working on multiplexes and land deals. And like, that's like the stuff that's very, very complicated that people don't get into first. So, what made you go that way first instead of just, hey, I'm going to get my real estate license and I'm going to go sell single family homes?
No, that's great. I didn't even get into real estate to be a realtor, which is crazy because now that's what I'm known for. But I got into real estate to put my money to work. I read Robert Kiyosaki, Who Took My Money. Literally, that's the name of the book. People talk about Rich Dad, Poor Dad. He's got a title called Who Took My Money. And that book changed my life. I read it in like 2 days. And that's when I said, okay, I got to have a career, but my money has to have a career. And mine was to go do real estate and do development and do it long term because everybody talks about wholesaling and flipping. And that's very speculative. where he talks about buy and hold, and you're building a portfolio. So yeah, I mean, it was one of the smartest things I did. We were 24 and 22 at the time, and so, but that's what led me into. People kept coming to me saying, "Can you help me do what you do?" I was like, "I don't have a real estate license," and so that's when I got my license, and I went to Keller Williams, and that's what kind of started the real estate sales part.
That's awesome. Now, today, what it looks like today for you, where do you see the market going for you? And for if somebody came to you for advice today and they said, "Hey, I'm just getting in," and I'm sure the market's crazy there, like it is everywhere else, and there's not inventory, and it's the same stuff that's going. And I know Texas has got a big influx of people from California and everywhere else right now.
Yeah.
Like, what would you tell somebody coming to you today? Like, where do you see the trend going? Like, what do you think is next?
What I always tell people as a real estate person, so it was the same lesson I learned in 2010, because obviously the market was tough. There was a lot of foreclosures. A lot of agents were getting out of the business. People were not selling homes. It was just a tough time. So you had to learn how to hunt. You needed to understand your USP, which is unique selling proposition, and what value do you bring. And so my wife and I started that brokerage from scratch, and we just hit $1 billion in sales in less than 8 years.
Congratulations.
Appreciate it, bro. In a small college town.
That's great.
Yeah. So to hit $1 billion in sales in a small college town is a lot of grind. But what I learned in that, and what the question I want to answer is, what would I tell agents to do? I would tell them to focus on their database, focus on their unique selling proposition. Like, what can they do different than the millions of agents that are out there? And then go get listings. Like, really understand how to get listings, because whether the market is up or down, like right now, there's 10 offers on a house. You want to know who wins no matter what? The listing agent.
You're right.
It's like, go get listings.
And I tell people all the time that too. Like, in the worst market ever in 2007, 2008, 2009, there were still closings almost every single day. Like, this deals still happen, right? People, and even more when I hear, and I don't know if this is happening there, but I hear it a lot in New York, where real estate brokers' fees are getting squeezed, where the 6% is now 3% or 4% in some areas. People want to pay less, and that's because it's an easy place to get a deal right. You could sell a house really easy right now. When it gets back to being hard to sell the houses again, your fees will go back up again because it takes more skill. So you're right, though. If you go get listings, you'll always have a place, because people are always going to want to buy and sell.
Yep. Well, listings control the market, and when you have the inventory, right, it's with anything, right? Like, whether we're talking businesses, whether we're talking this, if you have the inventory, you control the market. And so that's the key. And I always tell people, I'm always weary. I had some agents that I was at Keller Williams, they started reducing their commissions because they were just like, this is the way I could stay busy. And they were getting so much business at the time. And I didn't even know what I was doing, but I remember saying, I'm not gonna squeeze myself on my value, because I know my value and I know what I bring to the table. And now, 10 years later, those agents still walk around and have reduced commissions. They were never able to get their commissions back.
What you just said is so important for anybody who's listening, because once you lower your value, that's what you get used to, and that's what you'll accept every single time. If you decide not to accept that, you're almost manifesting the fact that I'm going to get business at this level, whatever it takes. It may be less business, but I'm going to get business at this level.
Yep. And you're playing the long game. You cannot play this real estate game in mortgage and sales and construction short term. If you are, that's why I never got into flipping and wholesaling, because it's too speculative for me. Everything that I want to do is long term. As Warren Buffett talks about the stock market.
Yeah. I think we have to get through the short-term pains to get to the long-term goals. And I think that's just some people come up short a lot, but I agree. I'm always trying to think long-term of real estate. And I listened to the Real Estate Entrepreneur podcast, a bunch of episodes over the last few days as I was going to speak to you. And I think you do a great job at explaining kind of what's going on. And did you start that to educate people? Was that kind of the reasoning about it, like behind it, or is just, maybe you speak a little bit about your unique selling proposition too. So I kind of got that when you brought that up. Like, what was the thought process behind getting the podcast out there?
Man, thank you for bringing that up, man. Yeah, so Real Estate Entrepreneur podcast. The reason I wanted to do Real Estate Entrepreneur, I didn't want to be a realtor. I didn't want to be a builder. I didn't want to be a developer. Shit, I'm doing all of it. It's like we're all entrepreneurs, whether you're in mortgage, whether you're in development, you're running a business. You're a 1099, or even if you're on base salary, like, you have to think outside the box. You got to know P&Ls. You got to know recruiting. You got to know HR. So for me, I wanted to do that. That was the reason I titled it that. But yeah, man, I guess the vision behind it is my wife is always on me about celebrating the athlete in me. I just run the race, and before it's even over with, I'm already running back to the start line.
You like the process?
Yeah, dude, I love the process. And she's like, you got to celebrate. So we put up a post a couple years ago where we bought a strip center in Asheville, North Carolina. It's a Starbucks, Buffalo Wild Wings, and it was a big purchase for us. You know, we had no partners. It was just me and her. And we posted it because she encouraged me to do it. This thing ended up getting like 1 million shares in like 2 weeks. And so that's when she was like, see, you know, people can be inspired by what we're doing. You need to tell that story. So from that, I got this like influx of messages on social media. People asking me, do I have a book? Do I have a podcast? Do I have online courses? And I had none of it. Right. Yeah. And so I said, okay, so that's when I kind of put the podcast in motion to try to put it out there. So it's really just a way to inspire people and honestly to leave breadcrumbs for my kids. One day, our kids are going to be able to listen to this, bro. Yeah. Our great grandkids are going to be able to listen to this. They're going to be able to see you and see me, and they can get that content. So,
you know, that's an amazing point you made. You're right, because, you know, I have young kids too, and I never thought about that I can't really see my parents doing things like this. Like, you know, everything's kind of word of mouth. They're actually able to physically see a lot of these things. It changes legacies. So that's a really good point. And listening to the podcast, you brought something else up that really, really resonated with me, and I wanted to mention, because, you know, Disruptors Network, what I really wanted to highlight was people like you who are authentic, but authentic that they went through the process, that they weren't just saying something that they hadn't done, or they weren't, you know. And I've spoken to people even on this podcast before that were like, I have a few $1 million businesses. And then it's like, okay, what are those businesses? And then you don't really get a lot of responses, right? So, you know, but you said something on the podcast about there being all these systems and this out there, but you still have to do the work every single day. And I tell people all the time that, like, there's no 10-step process that's going to get you to success. Like, it's going to take thousands of hours. Like, can you speak to that a little bit? Because I've heard you speak about it, and I thought it was really powerful, and I just wanted to bring that up.
No, that's good, man. Yeah, I think the biggest thing, what I've learned is, going back to that, like, if you're going to build something that's sustainable with the right foundation, it's going to take time. Like, it's going to take time. Like, no great companies were built overnight. You know, the Mark Zuckerbergs of the world, even LeBron James, he's not, this whole thought process of overnight success is BS.
I agree.
You know, LeBron was shooting free throws and dunking balls before we ever knew who he was. He was getting shots up. Like, that's what people were like, oh, when you scored that touchdown, you pointed to the sky. I was pointing to the sky when I was 5 in the backyard. You guys just got to see it on TV. So it's like, man, I had hundreds and hundreds of catches and hundreds of routes ran before somebody ever saw me with a football in my hand. So that's the same mentality we got to have in business, is how are we going to build this thing long-term and sustainable? And I'm always thinking legacy. When I'm starting a new venture, and now my wife and I, we own 20 companies that we're leading. Is this something that we can hand to our kids? Is this something that one day we can hire our friends and family members and give them a job? If my mother-in-law gets laid off, or if my brother-in-law gets laid off, can I hire him at one of my companies? And the only way to do that is to build a sustainable business.
Yeah, that's really powerful, and congratulations, because that's a great story that you kind of went back to where you were from, but you built like this huge conglomerate of companies, and you're still there, which is awesome. You know, in reference to legacy, you know, where do you see yourself in 5 years or 10 years from where you are now? You're kind of growing so exponentially. Like, where do you see yourself in a few years? Like, what are you working on that you feel like you're passionate about, that it's leading you to?
Yeah, man, that's a great question. Yeah, I think the biggest thing for me now, like, I always tell people when they're like, well, man, you're so successful and you haven't changed. And I'm not being rude or arrogant with this statement, but I've been successful my whole life, you know. Even in my mind, you know, man, I was flipping burgers at Dairy Queen, sacking groceries at Albertson. I had a lawnmower business. Like, I've been a grinder my whole life. And I've always been a winner, even before people knew I was. So now it's like, when they're like, oh, you're doing this, I'm like, I've been successful. I don't even consider doing anything and thinking about failure. Like, I just go into it saying, how am I going to succeed? And when I fall on my ass, because we all do, I still think, how am I going to succeed? Even though I'm on my ass, what can I do next? But yeah, for me, where I see myself in 5 years, it's semi-retired, bro. I'm going to retire in probably 2-3 years. I mean, you know, I want to get to where I'm working 3 days a week, because at the end of the day, you can be a billionaire or you can be worth $100, but if you're not enjoying your life and have health to enjoy it, why do we need it, right? And so for me, we have a 10-year-old, a 7-year-old, and a 4-year-old, and I know they're active, they're athletes. And I want to be at a place where I'm their coach and I'm at every game and I'm there. And I know as they get older, it's going to get more and more active. So that's my one big main reason. My last two reasons is to make an impact and inspire others, which is why I just merged my independent brokers with EXP, because they afforded me the opportunity to now I can partner with people in all 50 states and in 15 countries. And so I have people joining my organization around the world, and I'm teaching them how to grow their business on what I did from a startup idea on a napkin to $1 billion in sales. And I'm showing these things on how to build a good business. And that's been the beauty of it. And then my last thing is just making an impact for my faith and, faith in God. And so I'm doing my own camp, doing some things like that just to try to make an impact when I'm dead and gone. So that's really the three things: is family, inspiring others, and faith.
Yeah, I mean, I like that you have you really have a clear direction. When I ask you the question, you don't have to think about it. You're like, I know this is what I really want. And I think that's important also. And as far as EXP goes, I like the model for that reason. And I work with a lot of EXP brokers, and Brett Sikora up in New Jersey is somebody I do business with a lot, and a bunch of the guys on the West Coast. And I like the model because you're able to kind of expand. I mean, we live in a place now where you can be in every single market. So why wouldn't you want to be? So I think that's awesome too. You know what I mean? I think that's why people are gravitating towards EXP.
Yeah. For me, the other big thing was being able to reserve my brand. I still get the BET M5. I still got my brand statewide. It's a strong brand here in our state. And, people have kept up with me through social media and what I've done as an independent. And so they've always reached out, and like, the question I always got is, when are you going to put a TM5 in my market? And I'm like, man, I'm in College Station. I can't tell you how many agents I've said no to. And so now I get to say yes to everybody to reach out to me if they fit my culture and they want to grow. Yeah,
and that's almost like the most frustrating part, right? Like you kind of want to help everybody, but you don't know how to help everybody, so it makes it easier.
Yep.
I like to ask this question because I'm like a regimented, very consistent person. I need consistencies in my life because it takes all the variables out when I have hard things coming at me. What is your daily routine like on a daily basis? Like, what is your daily routine? I'm sure you are regimented in some way, shape, or form.
Yeah, man. One of the things I've learned is I like to wake up and just have some time to myself. No matter what it is. Like, I used to wake up every morning and work out. I used to work out like 3 times a day when I was an athlete. I hate working out now, man, because that's all I did for a living.
Yeah.
But it's all about just cardio now, bro. I just want to get my heart rate up,
Yeah.
But I try to get up, and man, I love looking at properties, bro. Like, my wife and I travel, we go a lot of different places, and no matter where we're at, we end up looking at real estate. And we're like, why are we looking at real estate? That's what we do all day, every day. But then we go somewhere else and we're there looking at real estate. So I like to just get up in the morning and look for inspiration, man. I'm always looking for motivation, and I'm always looking to see what's happening because I'm studying the global market because we invest. We own property in Texas. We own property in Utah. We own property in Florida, in Kansas, Arkansas. So I just like to study the global market. And then I get up, spend some time with my wife, get my kids up, take them to school. Then I try to work out. I don't work out first thing in the morning, man. That's not my thing anymore. So then I get them all off, have a quick little breakfast, and then I go work out. And then I come back, shower, obviously. And then that's kind of my time to focus on what's my top 5 things for today, because I do everything by 5.
Okay.
And then I jump into my meetings, have my lunch, and then during my lunch period is kind of that time where I get to invest back in myself. I own ranches, so I go out, check on my cows, and do that a little bit. And that's just my way, man. When I'm out there with those cows, nobody bothers me, man. I love it. And then I try to get those hard tasks, those hard meetings, anything that requires me to like double down and really give a lot of my energy. I try to get all that done before lunch.
That's awesome, dude. Yeah, I mean, and it's interesting how you flip things around, and I always tell people it's kind of like stealing time. When you get time to yourself to think, it's like I steal time. Like, I'm an early person too, because I get to steal a couple of hours where I can just focus on the things that I need to focus on for the day. So I really appreciate that. And you just said something and made me think about something again. So I'm the same. I own properties in a bunch of different states. And I get this question a lot, so I think it would be pertinent to the audience. How are you managing those properties? Are you using management companies? Are they self-managed? Are you how do you manage the properties in other states? Because that could become a task also, right? Because you're not there and something breaks. So how are you managing those properties when you have them in other states?
Yeah, so our local team here, we used to manage them ourselves. Then we had ladies on our staff that were amazing employees that are here still with us to this day that helped us manage it. My wife was managing it. But we actually formed a partnership with a property manager, in town. And so now we are a property management company owner. And so our local property management manages our personal portfolio. It's right under, so we do everything by the bed here, right? It's like some people talk about units, some people talk about properties. So we got right at about 400 beds of property here that we've grown here in College Station. So we have a local management team for that. But then our commercial buildings and anything else that we have, we don't manage anything outside of our market. So we just have where we have our team manager local, and we go find the best of the best to manage our stuff in other states. Yes.
And listen, I think sometimes people are penny wise and dollar foolish in that situation. They don't want to use management companies, and it ends up biting them because really need, it's hard. You know, I have a property in Florida and the garbage disposal stops working. For me to stop my day to go call somebody, if the property manager's on call and they're doing a good job, so I agree with that. You have to hire talent, and places you need talent.
I call it TBS. Where's your time best spent? And that was hard for me, bro, because I'm the type of person, I'm all D, type A. I want to do it. I want to control it. But man, I've learned how to leverage. And I've also learned that where's my time best spent? Like, what is my gifting? Like, what am I really good at? And what can I bring to the world today? And if I'm worried about getting the toilet fixed, I'm not out inspiring people. I'm not thinking about new business ideas. I'm not being creative, and I'm not really leveraging my talent. So I try to give that stuff off now.
Yeah, yes, it's funny, and I don't know when it changed for you. I think children kind of changed. Mine is 7 and 5, and I think time became a lot more sensitive to me once I had kids because they grow so fast, and I think that I got just more aware, and that's my greatest gift at this point now is time. So I'm I'm the same as you. Like, Tom, where's your time best spent? I love that acronym. It's great because I don't want to waste time because I'm afraid to say no. I don't want to waste time doing something that I shouldn't be doing every single day. I want everything to be my highest best use. And like, even this, me spending 30, 40 minutes with you talking like this is something that I'll take something out of that'll help me in the future. So I just feel like my time is really well spent here, not doing something that doesn't serve me necessarily. So I think it's hard for people to understand that sometimes. We really have to look at what serves us best every single day.
You have to. And I think because our culture has created this don't be selfish mentality. Oh, think about others. Well, what I learned in 2018 is when it really got me. I lost my mom and my dad within 2 months. And I didn't have a relationship with my dad, but he's my dad, and him passing, it still hurt me. Well, I realized in that moment, all the people that I had sacrificed for and given my time to, coached them, picked up the phone when they needed me, walked them through a deal, taught them this, had their back. A lot of them didn't show up when I needed them, right? And so it's a hard lesson to learn. And so what I've learned is in that moment, I have to protect my mental health and my energy at all times, bro. Because if you're in a hole of depression or whatever you're going through, man, if you haven't given yourself, if your bucket's empty, you can't pour out into anybody if you're empty. And so I really now manage that. And I had a pastor tell me, your no is going to be so much more important than your yes in this new season that God is going to take you. So at every level that we go up, we gotta be better at saying no. And I hate that because I'm so used to standing at the fence, signing autographs for everybody, reaching over, giving me cards and helmets. And I'm just at a place now I can't do it like that anymore. I don't have the time. So
yeah, I find myself that I'm a people pleaser, right? I want people to be happy, but you're right. Sometimes that's an energy sucker, and you have to kind of be, and that's the harsh reality what you went through, and it stinks that you had to go through it in that manner. But it's like when I needed people, where were they? Like I'm the rock for everybody else all the time, but when I need people, where are they? So yeah, like I always give people that advice, no matter what you're doing, just don't waste time. And like people like to use the well, you only live once, and this and that. I said, yeah, I don't subscribe to that necessarily, and I do in some places, and other places I don't, because like I want to do the things I want to do every single day. At the same time, I don't want to be dragged in a million different directions because other people are using me to serve themselves, right? So it's like it's really difficult, but yeah, I really appreciate that.
You're learning so much, and I think the thing too is it committed to your vision? Because everybody wants to take their vision and get you to play a role in their vision. And I used to think I was helping and inspiring and like, yeah, man, let me help you. And before I knew it, by me going this so far in that direction over the last couple of weeks doing that, I'm away from my own vision. God has given me my vision that I got to focus on. So now I'm like, okay, I can't give you an energy to that, but hey, I can connect you with this person. or so I still try to use my resources to help people, but I've just learned that my energy and my time, I got to preserve that for the things that God has told me I need to do.
How do you so now, as you're making me think, how do you say no? How do you have a set of rules in your brain at this point now? This is a yes, this is a no. This is something I can't, do you segment it that way at this point where you're these are no's for me at all times, no matter what it is, this is going to be a no for me? Or is it just kind of if it depends on the day?
No, it's seasonal. So I tell my team, hey, over the next 6 months, no speaking engagements, nothing or whatever it is. And so we actually just sat down and we wrote out, what are the top 5 initiatives that I have in my mind right now? What do if everything else is just wiped away from a business standpoint, not personal, but from a business standpoint, what are my top 5 initiatives? And so now when these opportunities are coming from all million different directions, I look at that and say, does it fit into one of these pipelines? And then if it doesn't, then let's just table it until the fall of 2021 or next spring or whatever.
Yeah, and I think that's smart because I think, people have a fear of missing out on things, but sometimes you're running so many different directions that you don't concentrate on what you need to be concentrating on. And, I'm sure you want to do everything at a very, very high level. And I think it takes away from that when you're doing a million different things at once.
Well, you hit it on the head. I'm the king of wanting to do a million different things. I mean, you obviously just heard me say I'm running 20 companies. But what I've learned is you got to make sure that top 3, top 2, top 1, top 5, that the vision is so big that there's nothing that can get in the way of it, right? The vision of that is so big. When somebody comes to me and they're like, what if you had a Remax franchise, or my vision with what I'm about to do with EXP is so big. Anything else that comes my way, it's going to try to knock that out the way. It has no chance. And so I've learned to just create so big of a vision for it that I'm so focused on achieving that goal that in that particular pipeline or space, there's nothing that can get in the way of it.
Yeah, you're not going to get distracted. You don't get pulled off the line.
No. And that's where you see people get distracted because their vision isn't big enough. And that's why you lose people on your team. I tell you, Gary Keller told me this face to face because at one point in my life, he mentored me, and he's still a great friend. He said, you as an entrepreneur have to create an ecosystem in a world and a vision so big that people can join your world and not feel like they need to leave in order to achieve their dreams. Yeah. And man, they was like, wow, that blew my mind. And I'm like, man, I got to have so much vision and so much opportunity in my ecosystem, in my world, where people can join it and achieve all their dreams and still be a part of what I'm doing.
Yeah, I think that's so important. I think that's been a big trial and error lesson for me over the years. And between me and my partner, we have about 200 employees now, over 200 employees. And
awesome.
That's really what it comes down to. It comes down to, are you creating enough opportunity for them where they want to be around you at all times? And I think that's where we don't realize that sometimes, where it's just well, this works for me, but it doesn't work for them, or they don't have the opportunity to grow. Anybody, I don't care what it is, whatever job you're in, if you don't have an opportunity to grow, it's going to get sour. It doesn't make sense. Yeah. In saying that, as you're going to grow your team, even around the country, what is your unique value proposition in that? Besides the fact that you have all this knowledge and you've been very successful, when you're bringing somebody in, what do you tell them? This is kind of where I see you, or how do you kind of put that to a team member?
Yeah, man. The beauty of it is, first off, we have so many opportunities within the team, right? And we really base it on personality profiles, right? Some people, are high D, high I, right? They need to be out chasing stuff, having relationships. Then you get people that are high S, high C. They want to just have a steady environment, be very compliant, and do it repetitive tasks. And so we really try to focus on that first. Who are you? What are your motivators? Because the DISC test has motivators too, and then behavioral hierarchies. What are you, and who are you, and how are you? What's your makeup? And then from that point is where we talk about the vision of the company, where we're headed, where we're going, the growth, the opportunities. But yeah, as far as our value proposition, man, with our agents, the beauty that I tell them all the time is I'm not going to ever tell you anything I haven't done. So right out of the gate, as an athlete, right? If you just get some Joe Blow who shows up at Green Bay and says, I'm going to teach you guys how to run across the middle of the field and catch the ball. It's How many times have you went across the middle of the field to help them knocked out? And if you haven't, you think Brett Favre and Aaron Rodgers, Terrence Murphy, we ain't listening to that, right? And so that's the first thing I bring to the table. Like you said earlier, I'm not a faker. I did this. No, I actually did it, and I did it the hard way. And then, our unique selling proposition too is, man, we have tools, we have staff. Like, I really teach agents how to leverage, because right now the agent is struggling in this industry. We're in a microwave industry. People want stuff right now.
Yep.
And if you don't know how to leverage people, processes, and technology, you're not going to make it soon, man. The individual agent trying to do 100 tasks per transaction on their own, putting a sign out, putting a listing in the MLS, running the CMAs, negotiating the deal, drawing up the offer. Can you imagine? Like, that's what agents are trying to do as single agents. And I'm sitting over here and I've created this Henry Ford model where I have hunters, scalpers, and gatherers. And I've broken it up into 3 spaces. And so I get my hunters to go get the deals, go negotiate. When they get the contract, they hand it off to my transaction coordinator, and then they go back and do what they do best, get back on the horse and go hunt. And that's where I'm able to leverage talent, I'm able to leverage process, and I'm able to leverage technology. And it just makes it so much more efficient for everybody. And that's the main value proposition I bring to agents that will join my organization, that have joined my organization.
Yeah, I think that's awesome. So you're really putting people in a position to win, because you're letting them be their highest, the best use all the time. And I know the Henry Ford model well, and I think that's awesome, dude. I really is. You seem to have a really, really good system. So I'm excited to see how you're going to spread it. I'm gonna let you go, but I have one more question. So if you're speaking to the audience and it's somebody who's either just starting in real estate or that maybe they've plateaued, right, and they've got to a point where, like, I don't know what's next. They're an agent who's kind of, what would be 2 tips you would give them on, what they should be doing over the next few years to kind of get themselves to a level where you're at, or get yourself to a higher position?
Man, the beauty of it is, brother, it goes back to what we talked about earlier. What I would tell you is start with the fundamentals. Even Tiger Woods has to have a coach reminding him about his fundamentals. And a lot of times agents, salespeople in general, they don't even know what the fundamentals are. So there's a reason why they wake up every day and they let their clients dictate their schedule. So if their client just calls and like, I want to go see houses now, they just drop the world and they go run it. And you're never going to build a business that way. It's the same way, like if you and I just show up to a doctor's office and say, hey, we want to come in, we want to see Dr. Murphy. They're going to say, do you have an appointment? No, I want to see him now, though. They're going to say, here's a clipboard.
Yeah, right.
They're going to run you through the process. They're going to run you through a process. You're not just going to walk back here. And so I teach agents about time blocking, database management, really understanding your database, because the people, like, do you know that 87% of agents don't call their clients after they close a transaction?
It's crazy, right? Yeah, it's crazy.
You did a deal with them, bro. Like, they trust you. You did a deal. Even if it wasn't perfect, they saw you perform. What are you doing consistently to be in front of your past clients? That's the first thing. Understanding database. Then time blocking. I've said this quote a million times. I'll say it again. Agents get into this industry. Mortgage people, salespeople get into the industry of sales because of the freedom that it brings. But it's the freedom of sales, real estate sales, that kills them. It's the reason why 75% of agents get out of the industry after 2 years, because they don't time block and they just run from pillar to pole. And so those are the pain points that it just breaks my heart to see agents struggling with those things. And that's why I've set the framework up to make sure they're successful. I started a brokerage from scratch. The average agent closes 7 to 10 deals per year. On average, for almost 8 years in a row, my agents closed 30 deals per person. My PPP, per person production, was 30 plus.
That's amazing.
Because of these things that I'm teaching them.
By the way, what you said about them not time blocking and kind of just running around, it's the number one thing I always say, and I couldn't agree with you more, is that, you're now self-employed running your own business as an agent. That's really truly what it is. And some people aren't equipped to run their own business and they don't look for the tools to do it. But, like, listen, I think what you're doing is great. I think the fact that your agents are flourishing is amazing. I was impressed before I met you, but I'm even more impressed now. And I really, you dropped a lot of gems. And as I listen back to this, and I think people listen back to this, there's a lot of things that I would personally have taken notes on that you said, because I think that there's a lot of gems in there, and it's amazing. If somebody wants to get in touch with you, whether about real estate, joining your team, or just to kind of ask you some questions, where's the best place to get you? Yeah, man. So obviously I'm on Instagram. It's just Terrence Realtor, Terrence.
Realtor, Realtor. People always spell my name wrong and they wonder why they can't find me. And then, yeah, if people are interested, man, in hearing more about what we're doing, we're looking for agents in all 50 states and in 15 countries. It's just join TM5. Literally join tmdigit5.com. And then my enterprise site for all of our companies is just terrencemurphy.com, man. So thank you so much for the opportunity. And then, like I said, the podcast, Real Estate Entrepreneur Podcast with Terrence Murphy. It's on Spotify, Audible, YouTube, Apple Podcasts. It's on everything. So I'm excited about that too.
That's awesome, dude. And thank you for coming. Thank you for having me in your office with you. And I really appreciate it. And I think you were awesome. And thanks again.
Let's stay in touch, man. When I'm up your way, I would love to go to lunch, bro.
I would love it too. Listen, New York, New Jersey, Florida, I'm in all the time. I don't know where you're at in Florida, but I'm always down there. But I would love to meet up and just talk more about just what you have going on. I think you're awesome.
Let's do it, brother. Thank you so much for your time, man.
All right. Take care, Terrence. I appreciate it.
See you, bro.
Take care, bro.
Hey, how's it going, everybody? I hope you guys enjoyed this episode with Terrence C. Murphy and how he went from being an NFL star to being a very, very successful entrepreneur. Next week, we have the Zero to Diamond Man himself, Ricky Carruth, and it's an episode that you guys don't want to miss. So make sure you check that out and the rest of our catalog on all the streaming platforms. I see you guys there.